You know how you can get fresh, delicious tomatoes in the middle of winter? Ever wonder how that's even possible? Well, today we're going to uncover the simple scientific rule that lets us do exactly that. We're talking about creating summer in a box and growing food in some of the most unlikely places on Earth. Okay, let's dive right in. So here's our big puzzle, Iceland, a country known for, ice, volcanoes, and really, really short daylight hours in the winter. And yet, somehow, they grow tomatoes all year round. How in the world does that work? Well, to solve this, we first need to understand the basic rules of being a plant. All right, so to figure this out, we have to go back to basics. Before we can learn how to break the rules, we first have to know the recipe that plants use to make their own food. It's a process you've definitely heard of before, but we're going to look at it in a whole new way. And that process is, of course, photosynthesis. The best way to think about it is like a plant's own personal kitchen. It's this amazing chemical reaction where the plant, our little chef, takes a few simple ingredients and uses the energy from sunlight to cook up a sugary meal called glucose. That's the fuel that makes it grow. And here are the absolute must-haves for that recipe. You need light for energy, you need water, which it gets from the soil, and the final crucial ingredient is carbon dioxide, which the plant just pulls right out of the air. If you've got all three, the kitchen is officially open for business. But what happens if one of them runs out? And that question, that's where the real core idea of this whole explainer comes in. What happens when the plant's pantry is missing a key ingredient? This is where we meet something called a limiting factor. A limiting factor is exactly what it sounds like. It's the one thing that's in the shortest supply, and it basically puts a speed limit on the whole process. It doesn't matter how much of the other two ingredients you have. If you run out of one, the entire production line just grinds to a halt. It's the ultimate bottleneck. So let's meet the main culprits, shall we? There are 5 key things that can act as a blocker, slowing down or even completely stopping a plant from growing. Understanding these 5 is the key to solving our puzzle about Iceland. First up, light intensity. This is the energy source, right? So if a plant is in the shade, it's kind of like trying to cook with the stove on low. The process just slows way, way down. And at night, with no light at all, the kitchen is closed. Photosynthesis just stops, period. No light, no food. Next up is temperature. Photosynthesis is run by these tiny biological machines called enzymes. And these little machines are, well, they're picky. If it's too cold, they work incredibly slowly. That's why your grass barely grows in winter. But if it gets too hot, they denature, which basically means they break and stop working altogether. It's gotta be just right. Then we've got carbon dioxide. So what happens if a plant has all the light and perfect warmth in the world? Well, if it runs out of CO2 to breathe in, the rate of photosynthesis is still gonna drop. It's a key raw material, and without it, the recipe is just incomplete. And of course, we can't forget a couple of other big ones. First, there's the water supply, absolutely essential for the whole reaction. And second, chlorophyll. The green stuff in the leaves? That's what actually traps the sunlight. If a plant is low on chlorophyll, it's like having faulty solar panels. It just can't capture enough energy to even get started. Okay, so we've got our problems: light, temperature, CO2, water, and chlorophyll. Out in nature, these things are always changing. But what if you could control them? This is where we humans get really clever. That's the big question, isn't it? Outside, a farmer is completely at the mercy of the weather and the seasons. But what if they could build an environment where they get to make all the rules? And this is the brilliant solution, the modern greenhouse. It's basically a high-tech system designed to eliminate every single one of those limiting factors. First, the glass walls trap the sun's heat, which solves the temperature problem. Then, to get rid of the whole daylight hours limit, you use powerful artificial lights so plants can photosynthesize 24/7. And get this, paraffin heaters do double duty. They add more heat and they release carbon dioxide as they burn, feeding it right to the plants. It's a perfect, controllable world. And this just shows you how artificial this perfect summer can be. Back at those Icelandic tomato farms, they've created this perfect world for the plants, but it's actually too cold outside for local bees to even survive. So they literally have to import bees from mainland Europe just to pollinate the tomato flowers. It's a completely man-made ecosystem, right down to the insects. And if you want a sense of the sheer scale of this operation, check this out. To keep these massive greenhouses warm, they use naturally hot geothermal water that they store in huge tanks. Just one of those tanks holds enough hot water for nearly 8,000 showers. That's an incredible amount of energy, all focused on creating the perfect growing conditions. But here's what's really amazing. This technology creates a total win-win. For farmers, they can massively increase how much they grow, and they can do it all year. But also, by pumping waste CO2 from other industries into the greenhouses, they're not only supercharging plant growth, they're also stopping that CO2 from getting into the atmosphere. So it's good for business and good for the environment.
So let's bring this all back home. We've gone from the basic science inside a single plant cell all the way to these massive, high-tech farms in the Arctic. So what does all this mean for us, really?
Well, the end result is simple, but it's also pretty profound. By understanding and controlling these limiting factors, we can make sure that foods like tomatoes and lettuce are on our plates fresh and affordable, no matter what the season is or where we happen to live. It's science that you can literally taste. And that really leaves us with one last thought. We've seen how understanding a basic rule of biology lets us overcome nature's limits to grow food. It really makes you wonder, if we can create a perfect summer inside a glass box, what other huge challenges could we solve by understanding and hacking the simple rules of science?